Good morning and welcome to WNHH-FM's Dateline New Haven. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make the Elm City tick. And what a week our community had. Lots of news, lots of stuff percolating in New Haven. We're going to take a look back at the week on today's program with a review of headlines, comments from the commenters. We're going to read aloud the comments from New Haven Independent commenters, comment on those commenters, and then intersperse it with recordings of music by some of New Haven's local artists. I want to thank Harry Droz for coordinating all that. We're going to get help from that from Bob McCormack.
Yes.
Veteran radio personality in New Haven.
I'm full of spunk this morning, Paul.
Yeah,
That tea you recommended.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Bengal Spice.
Bengal Spice.
Swear by it.
I'm not a Cincinnati fan, however.
All right. Okay, just so we understand that. And then Harry Droz, our station manager, and the miracle man who makes this show happen. So, folks, one of the stories that got the most after vaccines, everyone wanted to talk about vaccines on the Independent this week, but we didn't really cover it a lot. It was up at the Capitol about whether to remove the religious exemptions for vaccines. But the story that in New Haven that got our readers most interested was about an alleged shakedown by a tow truck driver. And everyone hates the tow truck drivers. Sometimes I really feel for them.
Oh, I know how people feel. I've been one of those, Paul.
Towed and they get real mad, and it's a hard job. But sometimes they're sleazy. And over the years, we've had cases proved where they say, "Oh, you got to give me a lot of cash now to get your car," and then they don't. Then you have to pay a second time to get it and all that kind of stuff. And they make up rules you have to get the money for. So this one guy was a registered nurse, Naeem Langston. He's stopping at a place where he goes every week in Sherman Parkway, parks his car in the lot there, goes see somebody, a patient, comes out, and they're towing his car. Now, they weren't supposed to be towing his car, but when they did, and he was there under city law, if someone comes out, you're supposed to release it unless it's the boot, which is for back taxes. And they didn't. And then they started telling him, "You got to give me cash now, and if you keep complaining, in 15 minutes, you got to pay me twice as much." Totally illegal. They work for a towing company that has a history of shop arrests, insurance fraud, all this kind of stuff. But the city still keeps them in business. So they've been they're being suspended from the towing list.
As long as you don't tow my car.
Anthony's High Tech, and he has an operation on Gando Drive where he has three companies that he claims are separate.
I've actually been out there.
They claim it's three separate companies, but it's one, owned by him and his operation. And so we're going to be hearing more of them in coming weeks. And in the story, it said a 90-day suspension, but in truth, I think it might be longer, but we'll see. So the original report is going to be a 9-day suspension. I have a hunch more is going to come up before that happens. But let's see what readers had to say about this, Bob. What did Dennis Cerf say?
Sounds serious. 90-day suspension seems too easy. Wondering if a crime may have been committed. No love loss for the tow guys. Lock them up.
1644 had something to do with Harry. Had something to say about Harry. What did 1644 say? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Am I up?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Good. All right. So, sadly, I fear losing city business. These guys will just redouble their efforts on private lots. There will be more incidents like the one in the article. 90 days would be fair if his license to tow anybody under, and I lost myself, any business name was at stake. Since it is only city business, a total ban of any business in which he has a legal or equitable interest would be appropriate.
Big Nick had this to say.
Not Big Mac.
Not Big Mac, that's you. Big Nick wrote, "They did the same thing to me. And I need to know. How do I get my money back? They charged me $141. They took it from behind my house, not the property on Sherman Avenue. They put the property address up there." Daniel Cerf had more to say. Bob, what'd he say?
Many thanks to Naeem Langston for having the courage to stand his ground and bring this issue to light.
Harry, what are you seeing? What did Lookout write?
Check out this list of big donors for Tony Harp. And the link.
Yeah.
Mr. Monaco paid up to obtain the ability to charge big dollars for towing whoever he wanted to.
Well, Atticus Shrugged wasn't agreeing. Atticus said, hey, look out. So if you read critically, you'd have noticed in 2017, the police department suspended his company after a tower hauled an innocent person's car away during a snowstorm. Mayor Harp was mayor in 2017, so how did he pay for leniency or the ability when not a few months prior to donations he was suspended? As for the behavior, it's tough to fire a contractor for his driver's behavior. Perhaps this case is different because of repeated violations, but generally, terminating a contract because a subordinate is corrupt is a slippery slope. Think about the broader implications in your life and how you could be out of a job because someone else on your staff is corrupt. Also, think of the potential lawsuits and the damage to the city if the city is lost. Well, Lookout responded to Atticus Shrugged. What did Lookout write? Bob?
Yes, I read the details, and yes, I think a temporary suspension is very lenient when it is someone's third or fourth strike. The owner/company should be punished. That is how it works. In combination with the benefits of ownership comes the responsibility to hire good people, train them well, and fire those that break the rules. At this point, anything less than a permanent ban at this point would be the wrong answer. I'm hoping that Justin can discern right from wrong better than his predecessors.
Pedro Soto takes it to another level. Like, what do we do about this in a bigger way?
While towing,
what did Pedro write?
while towing vehicles is a necessary service, if there were an industry ripe for reform, this would be it. That towing list should be the first thing to go. It actually might make more sense to go back to municipal towing, although if there were a lack of funding, some other model needs to be tried.
Lorca, not Orca, wrote, "Cheers to Langston for not giving into this nonsense. Thugs like this have no place in society if you ask me. To hell with them." Bob, DMH464, that's a retired cop. What did he have to say?
I agree that some enforcement action should have been taken against one or both of the drivers once they refused to obey the officer's orders after she did her initial investigation. I don't agree that she could have done more herself, as she was a solo officer dealing with two individuals. What should she have done at that moment? When her sergeant arrived, he assumed control of the incident. If anything, it was on him to order the arrest, if warranted, which I believe should have happened.
Harry, what did George Polk write?
When I lived in the East Rock area, I would shake me ahead as I'd walk up Orange Street during sweeping season, admiring the line of tow trucks painted in their company colors, idling, waiting for the stroke of 8 to begin ticket tow and sweep operations. They needed to blast Wagner over a speaker system. Have to say, I'd wished many of the other cities' operations operated as efficient as the tow trucks. I don't want the city to take over towing, but maybe have a central lot. Nothing worse than tracking down a car and dealing with the garage people. Maybe the back lots on Brewery Street and Long Wharf.
Reverend Samuel T. Ross Lee wrote the
A
following.
man that's never forgot a word or two.
He pays attention to everything he writes.
He
and
does.
says, and
He
it's
does.
worth hearing. Here's what he wrote here. Suspend for 90 days? This man committed a crime. He should be charged, taken into custody, jailed, and made to face the judicial system for his criminal act.
7 to 9 years.
White people get a slap on the wrist for things for which black people get killed. The Reverend Mr. Samuel T. Ross Lee. A. Nunez, we know her. CTV wrote what, Bob?
I heard about this 2018. I personally know that someone was fired from there using this tactic against him for being an honest tow truck driver. He was black, listed by every towing company, and has not had gainful employment since 2018. That company sounds shady. Trust is breached. People need to take videos, pictures, and keep proof of their car space and surrounding signs.
Harry, Russell Mama, weighed in. What did Russell Mama say?
Well, I first want to go back to Reverend Ross Lee. Why does he have to sign his post?
Because he is not hiding.
A little
He wants
narcissism there?
people. No, I think that Reverend Ross Lee believes that people don't take enough responsibility for their words,
Oh, come on.
and that he's going to own up to what he says. He's going to stand by him and be accountable, and you know where to go if you don't agree.
Stick and move. The whole towing for street cleaning is such a scam and the moneymaker for the city and the towing companies. When I first moved to Worcester Street, probably 20 years ago, they'd move your car and ticket for the street cleaning. Then they switched to towing. Apparently, they switched to towing everywhere, but the streets up by St. Ronan, right, St. Ronan, where they still move and ticket, where most of the houses have driveways. So why are they parked on the street anyway?
Let's give it the last word.
Russell Mama, I got to sign
Tommaso,
it.
period, Bardelli. Good morning. My name is Tommaso Bardelli. I'm conducting a research project on the burden of financial debt for New Haven residents with colleagues from several universities. I don't think he means residents of the colleagues. I mean, he's doing the research project with the colleagues. We also want to learn about car towing practices in the city and their costs for citizens. If you would like to share your stories about towing with us, please email us at nhdebtmap, NHDEBTMAP, @gmail.com.
I definitely should.
Definitely.
I have some stories to tell about
all
towing.
conversations will remain strictly confidential. Best regards, Tommaso. I'm really interested in that debt map too. So, Bob, what are your stories?
If you've lived in New Haven or been to New Haven,
I've been told it's a
car
bad feeling.
It is a bad feeling to come out in your car and not be there. I remember one time my brother was at the hospital at St. Raphael's, came out. He actually thought his car was stolen. Called the police, ended up finding out later on it wasn't. It was towed. I guess he had owed tickets. Because if you owe tickets or taxes, is it still the $200 limit?
I believe it's $100 for one, maybe taxes, and $200 for tickets. But I'm not sure. Look it up. I have to look it up.
Yeah,
again.
and I mean that's not a good feeling when you come out and your car is towed from somewhere.
Yeah.
And you know there are limits at the meters. I've driven down,
but
especially in the
city
downtown
feels it needs
area.
Money. City feels it needs money because people like Yale, especially, doesn't pay its parking tickets, and that's a lot of money we need for running our government. And people are breaking the rules. Other people say that's too hard to find parking. I don't feel that bad for them on that.
Remember years ago, the New Haven Register used to put people's names actually in the paper
who owed the
who
most.
owed tons of money.
But the city's
parking
made some real
tickets.
money on this booting and towing, and these companies make a lot of money. It's obviously ripe for corruption. So I feel bad for the tow truck workers because I feel like they work for sometimes people who aren't the most honest business people. People are so mean to them when they're just doing their job. Now, in this case, the worker was doing something wrong because the police confirmed that, so I don't feel sorry for him. But I do feel bad for it's usually guys out there at night doing this crappy job where people they might want to hurt you. But they're pretty tough guys, so they kind of scare
There's
you
a
too.
guy who drives a car around. I've seen him, drives all around the city, and he's got something on his car, and it can, I guess, scan your plate.
It's called the plate hunter.
Right. So if you owe tickets or
Right,
taxes,
and that's how they then tow your car.
That's how they know
they
you get your
immobilize
car.
it for 2 days. What they really want is they don't want you to find out right away, and then they keep your car for a while. They can sell it or rack up the fees.
But here's what I think is wrong. When you go to Walmart, when you go to church lots on Sunday, and you tow cars, or you go up on somebody's
do you remember
property
the
and tow a
administration?
car.
So in Fairhaven, years ago, when Stefano was mayor, there was an outcry from the Latino community because outside St. Rose's, there weren't enough places to park legally. So every Sunday, there were tons of cars parked legally, and they towed there. And because of the politics situations, they stopped towing. Harry, any thoughts on this whole towing thing?
Well, I'm just looking at the cost. This is insane.
Well, it goes fast. What happens is you do like the 55 for the towing, or
Well,
the storage,
ticketed-
another 80 something for the towing.
It was like 80 for
Ticketed
towing,
and
excuse
towed
me.
is $77 tow fee, $88 for snow emergency, and then it's $20 a day for the first 5 days,
Right.
and then it goes to $24 a day.
And plus, there's
thereafter.
the towing fee. You forgot the towing
yeah,
fee.
the towing fee
and then the interest
is $77.
on the unpaid tickets.
It's insane. I mean, if you can't afford to pay your tickets, you can't afford to get your car.
So, Paul, let's go back to the original story on the towing company. They got, what, a 90-day suspension?
Well, no, they haven't gotten anything yet. I think it's going to end up being more. That was the initial intention.
Oh, that
90
was
days.
the initial. So they get suspended. What happens
They've been suspended
then?
before.
Okay,
It means
what
they
happens?
can still tow cars, but the city, they can't be those ones lined up at rush hour when you have to move out of space because they need the extra lane.
Right, for
you
the
see
snow
them all lined up
emergencies and the
get,
street sweeping.
No, every
stuff.
day when you can't park from 4 to 6, let's say, along Whitney Avenue.
Right.
The tow trucks are lined up, and they each get a chance, and they make a lot of money on this fast. So there are only 10 companies at a time on this list, the police department. When they take you off, you lose out on a lot of money.
I just
and
feel
this particular company has 3 companies operating out of one property, and they have 3 out of the 10 slots.
Being a working man for years, I just feel bad for people that get their cars towed. That is one of the worst feelings to ever happen. And then you got to pay to get it back.
I do feel bad
Lots
about
of
that.
money.
And I feel bad about people who can't get out of their driveways if there's an emergency because someone's blocking your way too.
Right.
Yeah. Harry, thoughts?
Well,
I hear you though, Bob. You feel for the people.
I feel for the people too.
You got to feel for them, Harry.
I've been told once. To me. I've been told once in the last maybe 30 years, right? So all it took was once for me to have to actually chase my car, find out where my car was towed, and all. I stopped. I said, "Whoa, I'll never park in somewhere I'm not supposed to park again." So I understand, but also all these people who are ticketed and can't afford their tickets, there has to be some way around the system that everybody's overtaxed and all these tickets and the prices of the tickets and the interest, and it just mounts up, and we're not rich people here,
Right. But we are at Dateline New Haven. And it is Friday, and you're listening to comments from New Haven.
Got one last thought, Paul.
Yes, Bob.
The person went in to tend to somebody at this Sherman Avenue complex, correct? Yeah, and I'm just saying, why would you tow them?
Of course, because they're lying in wait to try to make money.
Well, the tow truck driver doesn't know why you went in.
Well,
but
that's
there's plenty
true.
of spots in this lot, and he's parked there for a year, and there are no signs up now. There's a sign. They claim the private owner said we want to tow cars that shouldn't be here. No, of course. And then when he came out by law, you're not allowed to keep taking his car.
And how many tow truck operators does the city hire?
Well, it depends.
Is it 10? Is it dozens?
There's 10 at a time on the rotation list. There's a separate company that's hired for the booting. So, Harry,
they have no mercy, and it's a moneymaker.
Yes, it is.
It
definitely is.
In Waterbury, I go visit my mother in a assisted living place. And if you don't have a pass, now you're visiting your mother, and there's nowhere to park. There's available parking spots, but if you get in one, you're towed. So a lot of times I end up driving around in circles and then not visiting my mother.
You've really not visited your mother because of parking?
Because of parking.
You actually said you went home and you didn't see your mother?
Yeah. There's been times where there's no parking. I mean, there's available slots. But you go in there and you're told less than a half hour.
But does it say you're not allowed to park in the slot? Okay, so it's not available slots.
It's not available, and my sister's been told a few times.
And I know it's tough for you to walk there. Could you walk an extra block?
Well, then I'm parking somewhere I don't know, and I prefer not. I visit my mother when there's a parking spot.
You know what? You're listening to the comments and the commenters and local music at Headlines and Basslines on WNHH-FM. Harry, we had a different queued up. Could we go to the Smitty one? There's a rapper in New Haven named Smitty. He had a video and a song, I'm So New Haven, which gives a different view of New Haven from the one some of us have. And we're going to listen to him. And if you're watching, you can watch the video. New Haven Smitty, I'm So New Haven on WNHH. Harry's queuing it up. And, it's about what the view is from New Hallville. You recognize the scenes from a young man growing up here.
I'm so New Haven, 2 or 3. I'm so New Haven, shout out my community. I'm so New Haven, so New Haven. All I see is drugs, dealing, hella gang banging. I'm so New Haven, Mr. 2 or 3. Yeah, I run my city, but I ride around and get it usually. But I gotta lay low, I know hating them getting used to me. Fuck nigga hating on the young and man talking what they gon' do to me. Try stick me up, try growing me. Try fuck me over, try screwing me. Yeah, I fuck with Dollar, but this time I brought my crew with me. Son Bakery fake like a jewelry. Pull up kick rocks with that foolery. Bop, been ballin', Bobby still ballin'. Whitey college coaches and recruiting me. People love to hate, them just show love. Everybody gon' eat, cause my team, that girl, like the opposite of fake. I keep it real, like SBI. I keep it trail. My circle thirsty, hungry for a meal. Cause fake niggas ain't for me, just keeping it hell. My circle thirsty, hungry for a meal. Cause fake niggas ain't for me, just keeping it hell. Life's a gamble. That's why we carry eights. To shoot you down and grab a blade, cut you like Gary Gates. That's a fresh cut. Check your gear, you ain't fresh enough. Now it's my turn. Let me make it sharp. You Coach Carolina and I'm Tony Hart. Which means I'm winning and you losing. I've been up while you cowards snoozing. Getting fast, paper still manage to cruising. Live your life and hate how you manage to do it. You got 2 phones, they go for how the fuck is you booming? I'm still spending iTunes money, what the fuck is you doing? We ain't touching paper, come on, is you stupid? I'm still spending iTunes money, what the fuck is you doing? I'm so New Haven, so New Haven, 2 or 3. I'm so New Haven, shout out my community. I'm so New Haven, so New Haven, so New Haven. All I see is drug dealing, hella gang banging. This my town, I'ma hold it down. It only get realer. You don't work, ain't college playboy. Shooting a hoop, so you a drug dealer. Got order J's, been to jail, fucked 100 hoes, and you got a V, and you that nigga. Got a new mindset, got a new grind set, got new goals. I see the bigger picture. North Haven, Harwood, we don't never speak. Got this wild one from West Haven, wetter than the beach. Got this milk for milk, but she just wanna eat. Shout out my brand for Secret Vicky, keep J's on my feet. I got this Hampton honey, but she stay high. Be with the trumpet thought when I see him higher by. Can't forget Fair Haven, she don't know how to act. Say she from New York, Matt, her on corner PA. Like my girl's older, but they say I look like my father, so I knock them down like towers. They don't wanna be bothered. Tell them cop my single, cause I'm grinding, and it's $1. Plus it's hard for hobby, but hitting it is kinda harder. I'm so New Haven, so New Haven, 2 or 3. I'm so New Haven, shout out my community. I'm so New Haven, so New Haven, so New Haven, so New Haven. All I see is drug dealing, hella gang banging.
Oh, man.
So New Haven. That's Smitty, local rapper. Just got back from 2 years in behind bars, and he has a whole bunch of new videos we're gonna do next week. I thought that was a powerful video. What do you guys think of that video?
It was, great to portray the life here in New Haven right
For
now.
people, we all live different lives.
Right,
'Cause
we
we're
all
very
do. We
divided
live
community of
different lives.
race, income, neighborhood. The life he's describing in New Hallville that led to him going to jail.
And you should be applauded, Paul, for having a video like that.
Well, I
on
want to
the
know.
show-
I
on
don't
the
want to
show.
just have a fake vision of what our city's like. What do you think, Harry?
Paul's into gangster rap.
Actually, I
There's
don't
nothing
know.
wrong with
I don't
it.
know much about gangster rap, to tell you the truth.
I'm going to be honest with you.
Harry
I
knows
never
all
heard
about
of
it.
Pop Smoke until he
Me either.
died the
Did
other
you know about
day.
Pop Smoke, Harry?
I did not know who Pop Smoke was.
Rest
Either
in
was.
peace.
Apparently, it was pretty fast rising. He was living
Yes.
fast
I
life in
guess.
L.A.
I like this music too. The hip
I
hop station in
think-
Connecticut was playing it.
And I think that this last one, I think he did have a good kind of beat going and a good kind of music in the background, and it was rhythmic. What he was saying, it wasn't just talking. I felt that was a rap song. And what did
No,
you
it
think,
was
Harry?
it was pretty good. Too bad he doesn't have any clean music on YouTube.
Well, now to get away from his world. Now, his world is very different from the world of downtown New Haven, where rapidly, even though on the green you see people who are really down and out, homeless, drug addicted, all around the green, expensive apartments are being built. Old buildings renovated, new stuff built from the ground
And
up.
how can the folks in New Haven afford them?
I mean, we're talking, in some cases, $3,000 or more a month for a
That's
small apartment.
outrageous. Oof.
So this week, this is like Dog
You
Bites
sure it's
Man.
not Lower Manhattan we're talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
And this is Dog Bites Man. It's as though this weren't news, although I think it is because it matters. Just this week, another 135 apartments announced. Just this week. We're talking about 3,000 new apartments in the next few years. But the latest are the 900 Chapel Street, former Chapel Square Mall, in the back. I hadn't really paid attention to this, even though I used to work in the building and look back at this little roof. It's a little roof in the back that's not nearly as high. They're going to build a couple more stories on it and have another bunch of apartments there. And then they're filling in parking lots, which I actually think is a good idea. So across from Cafe 9, there's a parking lot on Krause Street by State. They're going to put a big apartment building there as well, adding up to another 35.
Apartment buildings are going up
and these,
so fast.
And these are
in New
called
Haven.
market rate, meaning it's going to cost more than we could afford. And I'm just wondering what you guys think. Well, let's see what the readers think about this latest. They looked at the pictures, because also people aren't that happy about what they look like, the kind of modern style. Everybody always kind of likes the last style, but when that last style came in, they probably liked the style before it. And it's true, it's hard to get our eyes around what's happening on Audubon Street and the Blake. These things do look like kind of these boxes. But anyway, what did Winfield have to say about this news about the latest 135 apartments, Bob?
Nasty 70s bunker, drawing on Madison and University Towers for inspiration. Doesn't New Haven have enough ugly buildings? Smaller units is what everybody wants. It's less to take care of, McKeon said. Yeah, let's see where he lives.
In other words, he was the lawyer for these guys saying people want small apartments, even though they're charging a lot, they're 1 or 2 bedrooms. And they're saying that's most of who's moving downtown. It's not families. Joe Ugly's always feeling that we should have families downtown. And other people say that doesn't give them a lot of room to run around with. Although in New York City, families live in the center of the city. They're tough conversation.
Of course they do.
Harry, what does Anonymous say?
Love it. But if the developer is going up to 9 stories, which requires elevators and is beyond the limit that wood construction allows, why can't they go up 20 stories? If we want to have more affordable housing, we need to encourage developers to build many, many more units than they are currently building. Can the city provide some additional incentives or zoning changes to get them to double the height of this building? The CSM limitations make more sense. Doing another tower there would require a much more costly overhaul. If you don't see rents coming down in the city center, it's because not enough new units are being built. Imagine how much rents would have increased if we hadn't had all these new units coming online over the past decade.
This next comment by a regular commenter, I don't really know how to say his name. I want to say Quincheon or Quinn Keon. But here's
I would go with the first one.
I'll go with Quinn Keon. I go with the second one.
Okay.
This is what that person of either pronunciation wrote. I feel that additional apartment units should be built on top of the existing parking building that sits above the former downtown mall. I even think the building itself needs a change in appearance. More buildings downtown should be around 20 stories or higher. If you're going to build more apartments all over town, then why not make the overall cost of living more convenient for people who want to live in New Haven? Now, Bob, citoyen, that's French for citizen. What is citoyen, right?
I respectfully disagree with Winfield. The building looks to be nicely respectful of its context. And what a relief it is not in the now ubiquitous corniced cardboard box style. Its facade with elements at the same scale as those in surrounding buildings and with similar colors is much more varied than those of Madison or University towers. And unlike them, this is not a tower in a park or parking lot. It is a contributing member of a streetscape. Considering their egregious fight to prevent development of the former Comcast site near Worcester Square, I find myself surprised to say something positive regarding PMC property management. But if other developers would be willing to take cues from the example here, New Haven would benefit.
He's referring to the fact that PMC is the group from Philly building that building. They do a bad job at a building they run at the Smoothie Building, and the way they dealt with it was rather than try to fix that building up, they went to court and had the city spend years delaying allowing someone to build new apartments across the street because they were worried that would compete with them and force them to have the place not have leaks and stuff falling down from the ceilings if they want to charge good rents. So they have a bad record, and they've had long-running lawsuits in that same area, State Street, with other buildings they have about the city and the water table. and they haven't done a good job at 900 Chapel running it. I used to work in that building,
Mm.
so I agree with Sven that they're crappy corporate citizens and developers, but it is good to fill in that.
Who's
block.
doing the building on High Street near Crown?
I forget who's doing that.
Is
one.
that
The old
that's
gas
going to
station.
be
That's, I believe,
commercial or residential?
That's going to be residential.
Okay.
At the old gas station. I had not recognized the name of the person when we wrote the article about that. It's not the same person up the block, which is like Mod Equities and Randy Salvatore. This was another entrant into this building. Boom. Harry. Oh, actually, I think it might be the people who own that gas station. I'm not mistaken. What did
Wow.
Budman write, Harry?
Not buying the whole 1-bedroom is what people want hype. 2 bedrooms not only allows for families, but it also allows young professionals to have a roommate to share their expenses with.
Good point.
Good point.
But then again, you're telling builders what people want. Builders aren't going to invest millions of dollars on something people don't want.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm sounding like a libertarian. Ethan Jr. T had the following thoughts. Thoughts from someone who lives at 38 Crown, right next to the lot to be developed. I'm so glad he wrote in. 1. I wonder when they'll actually break ground and whether rents will go down during that time. Somehow I doubt it. Many of the tenants will probably renew their leases unaware that construction is about to start. This is the first I'm hearing of it. Number 2. How exactly is PMC explaining away the parking situation? It's tough enough to find parking downtown as it is. PMC has some spots for tenants in the lot right now. Certainly not nearly as many spots as there are units, but they'd be ripping most of that up to build a new building. More units, fewer spots. How does this math work out? Well, actually, a lot of people argue there should be fewer spots, that a lot of people don't have cars. We don't want to encourage cars in downtown. Other people say, let's deal with what people are actually doing. What did Kevin McCarthy, one of the best commenters and Independent Friends, wrote? Bob.
Anonymous, I'm generally pro-development, but projects like these are not going to affect the city's shortage of affordable housing anytime soon. The impact of a couple of hundred new apartments in a city with 59,000 housing units is going to be very modest. City Yankees rents are high in New Haven and elsewhere because demand is outpacing supply. There are a bunch of reasons for this. Many 20 and 30-somethings continue to rent, even though they have decent jobs, because they can't afford to buy. At the same time, a number of empty nesters have moved into the city. Finally, there have been an influx of young people in the biotech and IT industries. Budman, about 30% of New Haven's households consist of one person. That is why you are seeing so many one-bedroom apartments being built. The Urban Design League is essentially interest and a couple of her friends. She deeply creates for the city.
Deeply cares.
Deeply cares, I apologize,
No problem.
for the city, but the league's impact on development is more or less proportional to its size.
Harry Anonymous jumped into this debate again. What did Anonymous write this time, Harry?
Ethan, JRT. Let the free market provide parking. Every time you require parking spaces, you raise the cost of housing or eliminate the potential for new housing altogether. We need housing for people, not subsidized housing for cars. I have no problem with parking lots and huge parking garages, but 100% of the cost of providing that small set-asides to allow people with impaired mobility to access the area.
Skipped a line there. So his argument here is that, okay, let's have parking, but 100% of the cost of providing that parking and related small road infrastructure should be shouldered by the people who drive.
By people who drive, with exception of the small set-asides to allow people with impaired mobility to access the area. Right now, everyone is paying hundreds of dollars per month more in rent to cover the cost of parking, whether or not they themselves even own a car.
SB weighed in. SB wrote, Kevin is right that it is easy to exaggerate the scale of our building, quote, boom. New Haven issued 600 building permits last year, about 1% of the existing stock, which is still decaying in many neighborhoods. Stanford issued more than 1,000 building permits and may surpass us in total population before long. our property tax grand list is flat. There are 300,000 or so jobs, I think, in the New Haven commuting zone. We can grow if we want to allow it. Let's give the last word again to Lorca, not Orca. Bob, what did Lorca, not Orca, write?
Cafe 9 seems to be pretty well soundproof, but I hope new tenants across the street don't have the audacity to complain about noise.
Headlines and baselines on Dateline New Haven. Look at the week that's gone by, the news stories, and what New Haven independent commenters have had to say about it with Bob McCormick and Harry Droz on WNHH 103.5 FM, live streamed at newhavenindependent.org. Any thoughts, guys?
Who in New Haven could afford these apartments except maybe
I had
the
a theory.
doctors and lawyers?
For a few years, I had theory that all these apartments, thousands of new units, were being, I didn't really know anyone living in them, that they were being occupied by avatars. You know those things you make up on computers? Harry's in that world.
Not me.
Now, it turned out not to be true. I actually met some human beings who lived there. And then I talked to the landlords. They said that several groups are coming in. Some were like professional couples, one of whom commutes to New York or Stanford because it's right by the train. Some of it was people in 2030s, like you heard here, who aren't buying houses for a variety of reasons. A lot of it was driven by people at the 3 professional schools at Yale where people actually have money. You know how students sometimes don't have a lot of money and sometimes they do? Well, they said that law students, medical students, and business students tend to have money. They were buying it. And then empty nesters, people retiring who now want to be in cities that kind of have a lot of cool stuff going on. They're fun. And you live near the center and you walk around to places. So this is happening all over the country, especially university cities and housing shortages in cities and prices going way too high. It's interesting.
I lived years ago in Madison Towers, and I can remember how expensive it was.
And that's nothing compared to now.
Oh, yeah. It was back in the 80s when I lived there, and even to pay for parking, it was ridiculous across the street at the garage.
Harry?
So you said medical school students and law school students.
And business school.
Okay, so that sounds like on point. So if Bernie or Elizabeth,
I knew we were going somewhere here with the presidential election.
I got one more thought.
Well, the thing is that they're investing in property because they're not going to have to pay for their
They're not
schooling.
buying property, they're renting.
Oh, well, they're renting.
There goes that theory.
So that's, well, still, they have that money. Instead of paying off their student loans, they're betting on Bernie
Actually,
or Elizabeth.
sometimes what they do is they also double or triple up at 360.
I think a lot of the apartments that are being built are being geared towards the Yale community.
Oh, of course.
And Yale, not just students, but like
No,
professors
not just students,
and
right?
deans
Professors.
and people commute one place to the
Right.
other because we have that new State Street train station.
Mhm.
All right, so Harry, we're
But,
doing
but do you think if the more buildings that they build, the more apartments, you think the rent's ever going to come down?
That's the big debate here. So there are a couple of
I don't
aspects of
think
debate. So now, traditional supply and demand says that if right now rents are high because more people want apartments than there are, so that makes them able to charge more. Traditional supply and demand says if you build more, then the people who rent have more power. So on Dry Street,
And it
the big
comes down,
example is
but-
Dry Street. They figure that Dry Street would have very much higher rents now because all the people want to live there. But once you build the block away on House Street, all the new stuff than the older stuff. So part of the question is, would they go higher without this? So it's like an article of faith. The other question is whether life doesn't always work out the way it's supposed to work out in economic theory for other reasons. So some people say for whatever reason, when they build all these new apartments, sometimes it gets other people to feel they could charge more. But other people say the other landlords don't have as new stuff as good stuff, so they can't charge more. And then other people say it's a magic question whether there's too much supply or demand. So it's a little bit academic.
The supply and demand, I don't know if you can apply it the same way to the real estate
Well, historically,
market.
you could. There seems to be something different happening
the
now.
thing
just
is,
like
it all depends on the economy usually, right? So your investment in your house, if the economy is great, the value of your home usually skyrockets. Now, if the economy is struggling, that's when the housing prices come down.
And actually, we saw both things come true, Harry, in New Haven in the early 90s and late 80s. We had a much smaller version of this building boom. And instead of rental apartments, it was condos. And it was happening a lot near the Fairhaven water. So they built hundreds and hundreds of condos that were very expensive. It turned out they overbuilt, just like they're probably overbuilding now. So the investors in those projects lost money. But it wasn't bad for us because we had new apartments. And when the economy turned and there was no longer all the supply and demand, so it's both factors. The prices came down. In some cases, they went to Section 8. In a lot of cases, it was working to middle class people, workforce housing, it's called. They would move in. So I'm kind of hoping, not that I don't wish bad things for investors, but like the guys from Brooklyn who put all that money into Winchester Avenue, Science Park, and get an old factory building, have you $3,000 in New Hallville and Dixwell for a 1-bedroom. We all believe that, we could be wrong, unless they've already sold it so the next guy will be the dummy. They're going to take a haircut and lose a lot of money on the investment. That rent will come down. And that will be a good thing because that's new housing where there was an empty factory.
See, but that's the thing about it, right? So as long as you have people who can afford it, those prices are going to stick around. Now, if the economy turns and jobs are lost and all of that stuff, then
also,
you'll see.
And also,
the
how
effect.
many people can afford is going to keep being the question. Now, it continues. They fill up these luxury places when they're built. Like the Corsair, for some reason, it was near filled. I mean, that was incredibly expensive for a small space. So right now, there are enough people to afford it. I guess we're all believing that at some point there are going to be a lot more of these apartments than people can afford, them, even without a turn in the economy.
I'm going to the other side of the coin, Paul. Why don't one of these developers build in one of the minority neighborhoods in New Haven?
They are 401 wants them, and people are very upset at them for it. They're building not 401 too. The Ed Science Park.
Let's go a little further down Winchester Avenue.
Well, that's a block from Winchester. 400 apartments.
Yeah, but let's go down further past the Taurus, way past that.
That would be nice in New Hallville.
Yes, in New Hallville. Let's build one of these, and the family should be, let's make the market rate or whatever.
Investors are looking to make money.
I understand
that's the problem.
Now, the problem in New Hallville is the investors who are buying there are getting buildings that were abandoned, charging a lot of rent because Section 8 pays them and they're making money, but they're not making the places nice. I tell you what, maybe it makes me kind of want to scream the way Chesky and Samus, New Haven's Chesky, with a great duet with Samus, our favorite video of 2019, local video. We're taking a break on headlines and Basslines for some local music as well. Check this out. Unforgettable song. Middle Earth. Middle Earth. Again.
Slipping my way through the cracks, and I hope you don't overreact when my body collapses. I've been wandering, hoping to find my own place on this planet. I've been up in the middle of it, I've been up in the middle of it, in the Middle Earth. I've been nothing but real with you, I've been nothing but real with you. Slipping my way through the cracks, and I hope you don't overreact when my body collapses. I've been wandering, hoping to find my own place on this planet. I've been up in the middle of it, I've been up in the middle of it, in the Middle Earth. I've been nothing but real with you, I've been nothing but real with you, till the dirt. Is honesty overrated? How many times have I said the same thing in new ways? Start to think it's the way that my life's gonna be, and I guess that's okay. Wanted to be a grunge singer when I was a child. Grew up fast and wild. Now the crow's feet are crawling all over my face every time that I smile. What you know about being decapitated but your body still rolls around endlessly? Is there a way for me to face my infinite demons and maintain a sense of stability? Hustling for pennies like I was still 14. I ain't ready to grow up. Just wasn't made for these times. Realize I will never blow up, and that's fine. I'm not Cobain or Cornell or Lane. I'm just floating inside my own lane. Every word that I'm singing is plain. Just hoping that someone out there can relate. And there's times when I hate my brain, when I drive directly into trees. Think of 6 million ways to stop breathing, but my heart is pounding from the anxiety. Every year it gets sadder and fatter, to the point that you realize none of it matters much. For the minutes we have on this planet, we're seeking love, and that's more than enough. Call it what you want, call it God, call it your freedom. That connection between living beings is a powerful thing, and that's real to us. Slipping my way through the cracks, slipping my way through the cracks. Slipping my way through the cracks, slipping my way through the cracks. And I know she don't love me like that, and I know she don't love me like that. Not the game nor the lady, maybe neither of them gonna love me back. No, slipping my way through the cracks, slipping my way through the cracks. Slipping my way through the cracks, slipping my way through the cracks. And I know she don't love me like that, and I know she don't love me like that. Not the game or the lady, maybe neither of them gonna love me back. No.
Yeah. It took me a little while to stop trying to get the approval of others. It's better than living life in denial. My worst fears to be middling. In my nightmares, I'm a kid again. And my teacher is asking my chosen career. I deceive her, cause that's what adults want to hear. They like doctors, firefighters, not a future that's odd like it's Tyler's. It's probably a sign I can't lie through my teeth. I was missing my two front incisors. But now I sing my canine into sound rhymes like they steak knives. Anxiety tried me, I've died, been revived. So I'm trying to hold on to my 8 lives. And I cannot pretend I could handle it if I ended up in middle management. Yeah, I have to be fucking with something I love if I'm burning both ends of my candlestick. And even then, I'm a little carp, busy giving birth to a great tale. To my biggest fans, I am Joan of Arc, walking Middle Earth in my chainmail. Yeah.
Slipping my way through the cracks, and I hope you don't overreact when my body collapses. I've been wandering, hoping to find my own place on this planet. I've been up in the middle of it, I've been up in the middle of it, in the middle earth. I've been nothing but real with you, I've been nothing but real with you. Slipping my way through the cracks, and I hope you don't overreact when my body collapses. I've been wandering, hoping to find my own place on this planet. I've been up in the middle of it, I've been up in the middle of it, in the middle earth. I've been nothing but real with you, I've been nothing but real with you, till the dirt.
Middle Earth. New Haven's Chesky teaming up with Ithaca's Samus for a song and a video. It still get to me, no matter. I can't count how many times now I've watched and listened to that video, and I find it very powerful. What do you guys think of that video?
Awesome.
Chesky. Chesky's really talented.
Is
guy.
he local?
He is. Grew up in Morris Cove.
Yeah, he's really good.
All right. He did 2 albums last year. Okay, we're running out of times here on Dateline New Haven, headlines and baselines. Let's get a few comments based. The story was about 2 things. Stories about the Historic District Commission, New Haven. And they made this guy named Andy Casiglia, who grew up, Italian-American family in Worcester Square, became a cop, a developer. There was a vacant lot. The city sold them. They want some housing there. It took them years and years and years and 4 tries before the Historic District Commission said, we approve of the kind of materials and designs you have so you can build there. The commenters pointed out a story that was in the Register where right along the Quinnipiac River on the Heights, this guy was going to build hundreds of new homes that people wanted, a vacant property, workforce homes for people like aimed at teachers and cops and people like that, firefighters. And they finally gave up because of all the rules about what the porches should look like, based on this Historic District Commission's ideas about freezing in time a look they want and actually preventing people from building and innovating. They probably would have prevented the immigrants 100 years ago who built Worcester Square the way they want to preserve now. So that's my bias. But Patricia Kane wrote in to defend the way that historic preservation people stopped that project from being built in Fairhaven. What did they write?
The proposed developers of the Heights started out with an oversized building, devoid of any architectural merit, to be constructed of plastic shingles, vinyl windows, and a plastic roof in an historic district and right on the water in East Grand Avenue. The second iteration contemplated hardy board. While many of us in the Heights would like to see a quality development on this significant and highly visible site, the developer was unwilling to respect the history and the architect of the area because it affected the bottom line. The HDC was trying to help the developers to comply with both the requirements of the historic district and the sentiment of the neighbors, that a new build add to the neighborhood. In the end, the project was not a good match for the site. We are fortunate in having a wonderful group of people on the HDC enforcing the requirements that are legally laid out, to be applauded.
Okay, now a very different view. Patricia Kane is always smart, has really interesting things to say, as does SB. And that's what I love about the comments section, people with different views. Harry, what was SB's response to Patricia Kane?
Which is worse, hardy board or forcing people to move out to suburban sprawl, killing the environment and worsening their lives, filling our streets with killer cars? In the past, builders used the products and construction techniques that were appropriate to the technology of the era, and they built in size and quality to match the incomes of their potential buyers and tenants. In those days, the cost of housing was not the biggest problem. Rather, food and clothing and transportation were too costly. Now that food and clothing are cheaper, we legislate expensive housing to get misery of many people. Why?
And a final view, I'm going to the end here, is from Wooster Squared, because they had 2 comments about something else. The HDC is the Historic District Commission. Wooster Squared says, I appreciate the work the HDC does on behalf of our communities. The commission has an important role in upkeep and maintenance of our neighborhoods. That said, this project was tied up on Wooster Square since 2013, during which time the lot just sat vacant. What good does a vacant lot do anyone, least of all its neighbors? Considering the dire need for affordable housing in New Haven, I am agreeing with the criticisms of Aaron Good. I think it's time to reform the HDC's mandate with an eye toward expediting the process in consideration of the broader community good. So that's one thing. Like, I love historic preservation. We tore down too much of our city in the 60s and 50s.
Yes, we
and
did.
I agree. But now they've had these in the hands of these rule makers who I think are drunk on their power and their ideas of what looks good versus the ideas of everyday people. Like, there's a Chinese American immigrant they put through years and tens of thousands of dollars on what shaped window he should have on a coffee shop. They would have done that to the Italian American immigrants who made Wooster Square look so great in a way they're trying to preserve. And climate change, they make it hard for people all over the country to put solar panels. And in the end, the great goals of historic preservation end up making it hard for other people to move in a neighborhood, make it hard for change to happen, and therefore preserve the interests of wealthier people in neighborhoods holding on to their investments rather than opening up opportunities for newcomers with new ideas. That's my very biased take. What do you guys think?
I think that the historic district in the Heights, Fairhaven, I think it's not a bad idea. I love living there. It's a beautiful place.
I do
Look
love
out.
the history.
Yeah, you look out, you see the river on a clear day. It's great living
That's
up
a good
there.
point, Bob. Harry?
It's true that people are drunk with power. I agree with that.
That's a good way to end.
Uh,
We won't get in an argument about who's drunk
about
with
the
power.
debate. How about the debate the other night?
Yeah, how about that debate?
We got 10 seconds each on the debate.
Mini Mike took it, hard. Bravo to Elizabeth Warren.
Okay, so Harry's supporting Elizabeth Warren for president. Bob McCormick, who do you want?
I'm still up in the
And
air.
Bernie. I like Bernie too.
I'm still up in the air.
All right.
I don't have a favorite. I want to see either Stacey Abrams or Michelle Obama
No
as a
question.
running mate.
No question.
That's delusional.
Everybody's so
And
old.
Don't
what
be
do they have to
delusional
offer?
now. It can happen.
Everybody's so old, and Bernie won't release his medical records that we're obviously going to care who the vice president is this time because that might be the president.
Yes, exactly.
Well, that's what Biden said.
That's exactly.
Biden said I might not complete my 4 years.
So
we should
therefore
have a
vote
good
for-
vice
yeah.
president.
I know that was kind of an odd pitch, Harry.
So vote for vice president this election.
All right. And on that note, thanks for joining us today in WNHH-FM's Dateline New Haven. We did headlines and baselines. Thanks to great comment readers and commenters, the best in the business, including Bob McCormick and Harry Droz.
Thanks for the Bengal spice, Paul.
You got it, man. Come back, please. We'll have more for you. We're going to, and the miracle man behind the controls always is Harry Droz, who's WNHH's station manager, has us in more dimensions on more platforms than a science fiction novel could even imagine. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all weekend long at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.
y'all. This is Babs Rolls Ivy, and you're listening to 103.5 FM WNHH.